we ready, Jane?
Won't be too long, Councillor Nigel. I'll let you know shortly. Sorry to keep you waiting, members. Councillor Nigel, we're ready to start the meeting.
Thank you very much, Jane. Okay, so good evening, everybody. My name is Councillor Nigel Smith. I'm chair of the Economy in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I can confirm that prior to the meeting, our committee officer, Jane Jones, has conducted a sound check, so I presume that everybody can hear me loud and clear. Can I welcome everybody to today's meeting? We are all attending remotely, and in addition to the committee members, we have non-committee members, cabinet members and officers joining us to assist with our discussions. For those of you viewing the live stream or recording, committee members are identified with an asterisk next to their name. The meeting will be recorded and live streamed, other than any exempt items. These will be available, or this meeting will be available for viewing after the meeting, and should the live stream fail, the meeting will continue to be recorded and be available through the council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation service is available this evening, and to choose the language of your choice. If you wish to speak, please use the raised hand function, that's the blue hand, so that you can also use the chat facility, but please note that as chair, I may not be able to monitor the chat at all times. All microphones will be muted, and if you have indicated your intention to speak, I will invite you to turn on your microphone. If you leave your device for any reason during this meeting, can you please ensure that you have muted and turned off your video feed? We'll now move on to the agenda items, and the first item tonight is item 1, apologies for absence.
Just one apology this evening from Councillor Keith Eales.
Thank you, Jane. We will now move on to declarations of interest, Code of Local Government Conduct. Do we have any declarations of interest? No? Okay, well, we'll move on to item 3 then, urgent matters.
There are no urgent matters, Chair.
I haven't been informed. Okay, that's great. So we will now move on to item 4, which is to receive and note the minutes of the Local Area Forum South held on the 2nd of February 2021. And these will be presented by Councillor Garfield. Good evening, Councillor Garfield.
Good evening, nos dda, diolch yn fawr iawn. Byddai'n cyflwyno'r cofnodion yn Gymraeg, byddai'n gwneud hynny'n weddol fyr. O'r cyfarfod, mae yna rhyw 4 prif bwnc fydden ni'n trafod yn y fforwm diwetha. Y cyntaf oedd strategaeth parcio, Parc Cenedlaethol Eryri. Chi'n cofio, dwi'n siŵr, yr haf diwetha a'r Gwanwyn diwetha, ond yna lot fawr o broblemau efo parcio yn ardal Eryri, ac mae'r parc wedi lawnsio ymgynghoriad. Felly gafon ni'n gyflwyniad gan 2 o swyddogion y parc oedd yn ddefnyddiol iawn, oedd yn sôn am yr ymgynghoriad, daeth i ben ddoe gyda llaw, ac oedd yr ymgynghoriad yna yn sôn am yr atab, os oes y beth, i barcio yn yr ardaloedd yna, ac atab cynaladwy i'r dyfodol. Mae'r ymgynghoriad wedi bod yn canolbwyntio ar barcio yn yr ardal, cludiant teithwyr, cerdded a beicio a gwasanaethau, am yn undera lleol newydd hefyd. Felly mae reit gynhwysfawr, a ni'n falch o glywed bod hwn yn cynnwys nifer o bentrefi sy'n berthnasol i ni gan gynnwys Betws y Coed hefyd. Fel ni'n dyma'r ymgynghoriad yna wedi dod i ben ddoe, felly fi'n ddiddorol iawn gweld be fydd y ffordd ymlaen rwan i'r parc a'r problemau parcio sydd wedi bod yna. Mi gafon ni wedyn ddiweddariad ar bartneriaeth llifogydd gwledig. Wel, dos a ddim partneriaeth yn bodoli ar hyn o bryd, ond y bwriad ydy sefydlu'n i ardal Llanrwst, Dyffryn Conwy, materion yna'n dal i'w trafod. Ond oedden ni yn trafod pwy fydda'r partneriaeth posib mewn partneriaeth o'r fath. Ond bod yna ipyn o waith i fynd eto i sefydlu partneriaeth felly, ac fe alwyd wedyn am gyfarfod arbennig o'r fforwm i drafod y ffordd ymlaen. Mae'r cyfarfod hwnnw wedi digwydd heddiw, felly mi fyddai adrodd ar hynny yn y cyfarfod nesaf. Ond mae'n braf gallu adrodd bod ni wedi symud ymlaen rhywfaint heddiw, bod ni wedi cael rhywfaint o gynnydd tuag at sefydlu partneriaeth i'r dyfodol. Ni gyd yn cytuno bod angen partneriaeth o'r fath oherwydd y problemau llifogydd sydd wedi bod dros flynyddoedd lawer yn yr ardal. Gawn ni ddiweddariad byr wedyn am ddatblygiad Plas yn Dre, y ganolfan, y depo, y cyngor yn Llanrwst. Gwaith yn dal i fynd yn ei flaen i drafod be i wneud nesaf, trafodaethau efo'r tirfeddiannwr i symud y depo i ardal arall. Roedd yr aelodau yn ychydig yn anhapus bod hyn yn cymryd gymaint o amser, ac fe ofynnwyd i ni fel cadeirydd y fforwm i sgwennu i'r cyngor sir i ofyn am eglurhad a i drio cael datrysiad eitha buan. Mae'r llythyr hwnnw wedi anfon, ond dwi ddim wedi cael ateb hyd yma. Mi gafon ni wedyn gyflwyniad am y cynllun am y dre Llanrwst ei hun, ac be di'r ffordd ymlaen orau ddatblygu'r dre. Ac gyflwyniad gan Elen Edwards oedd hwnna. Ac bod o'n gynllun eitha eang i ddatblygu'r dre ei hun gan gynnwys y llyfrgell, glasur a llefydd eraill. Mae yna fwrdd prosiect rwan wedi sefydlu i ddelio efo hynny, ac mae yna fwrdd arall efo glasur hefyd. Felly dyna'n fras ac yn fyr gyfarfod da wedi gwneud cynnydd mewn nifer o feysydd yma ac yn delio efo'r materion yma fel maen nhw'n codi. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you very much, Councillor Garfield. Members, do you have any comments on the minutes? If not, I'll be looking for a... Oh, sorry, Councillor Gronwy.
Diolch am y diweddariad, Garfield. Thank you for the update. It's on the matter of the meeting held today. Who was that arranged by? Because obviously I expressed an interest in being part of the flood forum, and I was not aware of a meeting being held today.
Yeah, it was arranged at the last in the last forum. I think it's in the minutes here where it said that a meeting would be called. Sorry, I'm just flicking back through the minutes. The last continued. Sorry, I'll switch back to Welsh. Oh, I've got an English version here as well. The rule for a partnership. Right, it was agreed that further discussion was needed regarding the establishment of a rural flood partnership, and that representatives of Llanrwst Town Council be invited to join those discussions. Then it was agreed that a special meeting of the local area forum South be arranged for a month's time to discuss the rural flood partnership, and for representatives of Llanrwst Town Council to be invited, as were all members of the forum. And that happened today at 4 o'clock. I'm disappointed if you weren't invited, Gronwy. I'll check why not.
I would be disappointed. Well, certainly, you know, the flooding occurs the whole length of the Conwy Valley, and my ward extends all the way up to Dorgarog, so I would have been very interested in being part of that forum.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But sorry, I'm just asking, were you present in the forum itself, the last full meeting?
Yes, I was yes. There, part of the discussion.
Yeah. And I thought sorry, it was passed at the time there would be a special meeting. So apologies, obviously, if you weren't officially invited to that, and I'll check and I'll make sure that doesn't happen again.
Diolch, Garfield.
Diolch, Gronwy.
Diolch yn fawr, Garfield. So if members are happy with the minutes of the area forum, I need a proposer and seconder. Councillor Ian Jenkins, yeah. And who's going to second those minutes?
Dwi just yn cynnig bod nhw'n gywir, bod y cofnodion yn gywir.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second them.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Aaron. Okay, members, just need a show of hands if you're happy with that. Could you please show? Yeah, I think that's unanimous. So thank you very much. And thank you, Garfield, for presenting those. We'll now move on to item 4.2, which is to receive and note the minutes of the Local Area Forum North, held on the 1st of February 2021. And these will be presented by Councillor Harry Saville. Good evening, Harry.
Evening, Nigel, and thank you. Right, the minutes are included in the agenda pack. They are self-explanatory, so I'll just dwell on the one item which I thought might be of interest. We had a very useful discussion with Henry Dixon, who's involved with the North Wales Tidal Lagoon Company and the leader, to discuss the possibility of bringing this exciting project to North Wales. Obviously, it's something that probably goes beyond the remit of the local area forum, but it's something that we think in Llandudno would be hugely beneficial locally. And hopefully there might be something more to hear about that in the future. Anyway, those are the minutes. That's all I have to say about them. I'm happy to propose that they are an accurate record and that you receive them.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harry. Any comments on the minutes, or if not, I'm looking for a seconder for those minutes. Councillor Carroll?
I'll second them.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Chair, can I come in with the question?
Of course you can, Councillor Abdul. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to know if in a later stage, Mr. Dixon will be presenting anything in full council regarding the tidal lagoon. Was there in-depth discussion on that, or was it just an informal meeting with the local forum?
If it would be helpful for Abdul, basically, as a forum, we think it'd be a really good project for our area. So we've invited Mr. Dixon along to explain what he thinks are the main problems or the main barriers to delivering the project. We've obviously had the leader in to explain what he's been doing in terms of pushing the project. We're hoping to have both Robin Miller and David Jones, the MPs for Aberconwy and Clwyd West, attend a meeting next month to explain what support they can lend in getting support from a UK government level. I mean, if full council felt it would be helpful to have Mr. Dixon attend, obviously that's up to, I think, yourself, Abdul, as the chair of full council. This is just something we've taken on as an initiative within the local area forum. And, you know, I probably should mention that it came about off the back of Ronnie. Ronnie was really clear that this was something that he felt would be of strategic importance for the area. So that's why we've discussed it and we've engaged with the leader early on to see what we can do to drive it up the council's agenda.
Yeah, I would agree, Councillor Harry. It's very important to the coastal communities within Conwy, and if Abdul could take that forward and perhaps try and get it on a full council agenda, or one of our councillor.
Yeah, I was more thinking about James Richardson to initiate something.
Perhaps you could take it away and speak with it, Abdul, on behalf of the committee members.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we will now move. Oh, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. Jane, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I think I'm very happy to do that, Councillor Nigel. Also, there's an exercise at the moment being undertaken by Welsh Government to bring forward expressions of interest for tidal lagoons across the country. So perhaps if I chat to the chairman, we could have a broader discussion about that process, what the implications are for North Wales, because there are two potential schemes in North Wales, one our side and one on the Mostyn side. So we could invite Henry Dixon to contribute to that discussion, but have one or two of our colleagues just talk to you about that wider process and how that kind of policy area is looking for Wales at the moment.
Yeah, that would be great, Jane. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane.
Councillor Gareth Jones, you got your hand up?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm very much in support, obviously, of the barrage. I missed the last meeting, unfortunately. And whilst I think a barrage of this nature will help very much in terms of flood prevention, I'm just concerned in terms of Llandudno that the barrage, from what I understand from previous discussions as former leader with the same company, the barrage would extend roughly from the Great Orme, somewhere west of Mostyn, as James referred to another tidal scheme there. If it's for flood prevention, my concern is that whereas we'd be safeguarding the north shore of Llandudno, but what about the vulnerable sea inundation that might emerge on the west shore? A tidal barrage, would off the north coast, I don't think would really safeguard that part of Llandudno. And if you had an inundation from the west side, along the west shore into the town, then we need to think about that.
Jane, would you like to come back?
Yeah, very wise words from Concordat Gareth, of course, and I think it's important that all councillors are aware that we are continuing with our own flood defence planning, irregardless of the tidal lagoon. The tidal lagoon would be an additional bonus, if you like, but from a coastal defence point of view, it's incumbent on us to bring forward our own plans. So our colleagues, Geraint Edwards and Owen Connery, met with the Llandudno Coastal Forum last week. They're meeting with them again this week and are developing, well, they've got plans that they've already tested with the public and with that forum, and are developing the sort of best fit proposal with that forum. And that will then be coming to democracy very soon with more details about what is planned for both the North and West Shore. So I've been reassured by the head of ERF that the West Shore plans are fully developed as well, and that is something that you as members will be looking at very soon.
Thank you very much, Jane. Councillor Harry Saville.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And it was just to probably continue what Jane said. I think one of the really important things to bear in mind about a tidal lagoon, Gareth is right, obviously, if it extends from the Great Orme over towards Prestatyn, that doesn't protect Llandudno from flooding from the West Shore or anywhere around the Conway Estuary. But the point for tidal lagoon, it's first and foremost a power station, effectively. It's there to generate clean electricity in huge amounts of it. You obviously have the added benefit of flood defence, but you also then, on top of that, have the potential tourism benefits as well. You're creating a huge lagoon area that you can have better access to for sailing, fishing, all of those sorts of things. And there's also a huge economic impact involved in just developing the project. I mean, I think we were really disappointed when the plug was pulled on Pwyllgor, because there could have been huge opportunities for people living and working in Conway. A project the size of the tidal lagoon would probably create a similar number of jobs. And it's also about thinking about the longevity of a project. I mean, one of the points that Mr. Dixon raised, which I frankly found astonishing, was in the lifespan of the tidal lagoon, you'd have built Pwyllgor B, fueled it, defueled it, decommissioned it, built Pwyllgor C, fueled that, defueled that, decommissioned it, and you'd be on to Pwyllgor D. So, I thought huge potential in this project, and hopefully it's something we as a local authority can get some weight behind, hopefully.
That's great. Thank you very much, Councillor Harry. Councillor John Roberts.
Thank you very much, Chair. As somebody who's met Henry Dixon and been involved with a previous chairman about this, who was very, very keen to establish this. I'm glad that Harry said that it's first and foremost a power station to generate power, and people know that it will be generating, even though as you look at the windmills, they're not turning when there's no wind. But with a tidal lagoon type of thing, it will generate power at the said time, years and years to go. I also visited Dinard, St. Malo in France, and seen what's been going on there for 60 years. Where have we been for 60 years, for God's sake? And we must, as a county and as a nation, we must embrace ideas like this. We've got to do it. And I think it'd be a very good idea to invite Henry Dixon. There's also another person I spoke to, Mark Shorrocks. I don't know if anybody remembers that name. He's been involved in it as well. But I would urge that either Mr. Dixon goes around all the local forums maybe, or comes to council to give his ideas and whatever. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, member development comes to mind. It might be an ideal opportunity for him to attend that, but I'll leave that in Jane's hands. So we've got a proposer and seconder for the minutes for the Area Forum North. If members would like to please show by raising their hands if they're happy with those minutes. Okay, so those minutes have been moved. Thank you very much, members. We'll then move on to item 4.3, which is to receive the minutes of Local Area Forum East, which was held on the 3rd of February 2021 and the 16th of February 2021. And these will be presented by Councillor Charlie McCoubry.
Good evening, members. So
Good evening, Charlie.
You'll see there's two sets of minutes there. I'd like to say that reflects what a hardworking bunch we are on the East, but actually at the first meeting, due to breakdown communication, there were no officers present, so we had to reschedule a few weeks later and save my blushes. The main theme was tourism as a driver for economic development in the East. John Merrick and his team carried out a really extensive survey last year with caravan visitors. There's 7,750 caravans in Tywin and Kimnall Bay, Abergele, which is 76% of the total in the county. At a conservative estimate, they bring in £92 to £94 million in the economy, which, whilst that's a big number, we're really keen to see that figure increase. The vast majority, over 90% of the caravans, are owner occupied, and whilst 60% of them do let people stay there, we're really keen to try and promote that, the more holiday type business where it's rented out all year round. So it was interesting talking to James that that's something you can do from a planning point of view. If there's going to be extended developments, that we could insist that that's a 52-week a year holiday business where people come, because we know that holiday guests spend more locally than someone who's just using it as effectively a getaway for the weekend or a second home. So some really good work there. The second part of the presentation was from James Harland, and it was about the role of planning. We know the East Tywin Bay is a floodplain, which causes a lot of restrictions. There's no new building there. That causes further problems with lack of Section 106 money to sort of develop the communities. And what we really want is to look at the art of the possible rather than it's always, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. So we're really keen to see where we can develop existing brownfield sites, improving the offer that's there. Because I'm sure Councillor Nigel has pointed out many times, there's a real lack of sort of shops and bars and facilities off the camps. And we really want to get those residents, holidaymakers, guests out and about. And we also want them travelling over to Abergele and further west rather than sort of taking the money across the Blue Bridge into Denbighshire. So it's very much a work in progress, but I thought there were two really, really positive meetings, and I'd like to thank members for their ongoing support for myself as chair, and also looking forward to the work we'll be doing in the future. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Yeah, very interesting points that were raised at that meeting, and I think last week I raised the points again with Julie James, I think the housing minister, that you know, it's been 30 years since we had the flood in Tywin, and whilst I'm cautious of flooding, I'm mindful of the fact that it seems to be the uplands that are getting flooded rather than the coastal plain. And every planning committee that I attend, we have neighbourhoods and residents out that don't want any more building in their area, but in the east of the county, we would certainly welcome that on our brownfield sites, and we could accommodate a few hundred houses. On the economic side, I can't get it through my head how we've got nearly, I don't know what, 75, 80,000 residents at peak season on the coastal strip from Kimnall Bay to Pensarn, and yet we must have only 30 retail businesses and no restaurants. I just can't figure that out, Charlie. It's if Welsh Government really want to develop and get you know, town centre regeneration, I think they're looking in the wrong place. They ought to look at generation, not just regeneration, and the east of the county is where that will happen the best. So thank you very much for those minutes. I'll be looking for either members' comments or somebody to propose or second them. Councillor Michael, is that a proposal?
Yeah, I'll propose that. It was a great meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Michael. Do we have a seconder for those minutes? I'm happy to do it.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
Oh, Councillor Jeff Corrie. Sorry, Jeff, I didn't see you there on my screen. So we've got a proposer and seconder. If there's no comments, we'll put that to the vote. Could you please show by raising your hands? Great. I think those minutes have been approved, and thank you, Councillor Charlie, for presenting them this evening. Okay, members, we'll now move on to item 5, which is to review the forward work programme for Economy in Place.
Councillor Nigel, you've missed the update from the local area forum.
Oh,
West.
I do apologise. Yeah. So that's item 4.4 is to receive and note the minutes of local area forum West. And these will be presented by Councillor Ken Stevens. I do apologise, Ken, we're skipping ahead there.
It's all right, don't worry about it. Yeah, we had a presentation from Joanna Parsons regarding the mental wellness team, focusing on a number of issues, basically. Protection from abuse, securing social and economic rights, and seeking more what mental services were available locally, basically. I can't really go into that too deeply, but if anybody wants to note it down, it's wellbeing@conway.gov.uk if you want further details of that. The other thing was similarly, I think it was because of the heavy rains we had in February, we were discussing the flooding locally as well, Penmamar, Llanfairpwll and Dwgafulgi, and problems we've had with that over the years. We now have a forward work plan, which we didn't have before. So at the next meeting, which is on the 19th of March, we were discussing GP provision in the area. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ken, for presenting those minutes. Do members have any questions for Ken or any comments? If not, I'll be looking for a proposer and seconder for those minutes.
I'll propose, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Joan. I presume Ken can second those. Yeah. Okay,
No.
so we've got a proposer and a seconder there.
No, is there somebody else that can second them? Oh, Councillor Harry.
Councillor Harry. All right.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
So we've got no hand showing for comments, so we'll put it to the vote. If members are happy with those minutes, could you please raise your hand? Yeah, I think we'll take those minutes as accepted. Thank you very much, members. So we now will move on to item 5, which is to review the forward work programme of the Economy in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, thank you, Chair. So just for the purposes of the live stream and recording, I'm Dawn Hughes and I'm the Scrutiny and Committee Services Officer for Conway. The agenda, the Economy in Place Forward Work Programme is in your agenda packs. Can I just highlight some changes since it was published? You will be aware that the meeting scheduled for the 21st of April has been cancelled with the agreement of the Chair and Vice Chair, and that the next meeting is on the 19th of May when we'll receive the following reports. So we'll have a report on the Colwyn Bay Investment and Recovery Project, which will include proposals for Colwyn Bay Town Centre to improve the appearance and provide additional parking facilities and more green infrastructure. So that's due on the 19th of May, together with the programme brief for the Brickworks Regeneration Programme, which is to be established. Also, there'll be 2 reports which support the revised LDP relating to the impact of population growth and housing, both on health and education. And can I just advise you that the review of the active travel network map will be going to the June meeting instead. That's my update, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do members have any comments on the forward work programme? Are members happy to accept it? We need a proposer and seconder. Councillor Jones?
Propose it, Chair. I'll propose. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Councillor John Roberts is going to propose and Councillor Joan Vaughan to second those.
Yeah.
If members are happy, could you please show by raising your hands? Yep, I think that's pretty much unanimous there.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dawn. So we will now move on to item 7, which is sorry, item 6.
Item 6, that's the one.
Yeah. Which is to seek an extension to the Sandy Cove Task and Finish Group. And this is down to me. Members have been mindful of the fact that officers have been extremely busy in recent months working on other items, and that has delayed a lot of reports and meetings. So we're asking for an extension on the task and finish group. I just wondered whether members would be happy for that to happen.
Can I just check, Chair, when did you want to extend it to? I think, was it June or July?
I think July.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll propose, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, what was that, Councillor Phillip?
I'll propose that we extend it.
I'll second that, Nigel.
All right,
Chairman.
thank you very much. So that's Councillor Phil Capper and Councillor Geoffrey Corrie. There don't seem to be any other comments, so if members are happy, could you please show by raising your hands? That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to item 7, which is questions for Cabinet members, which I don't appear to have any.
No, there are no questions, Chair.
Okay, so item 8 is to consider the following notice of motion and associated reports. Item 8.1 is a notice of motion for the establishment of a Conway Flood Defence Committee, and this is to be presented by Councillor Donald Mill. Good evening, Donald.
Good evening, Chair. Thank you very much. Sharing screen chart.
Are people
Donald,
struggling to hear Councillor Don?
We are,
yes.
Councillor Don, I don't know if you can hear me, but your reception's quite poor. We're having difficulty hearing you.
I'll see if I can get
Turn your video off, please. Try that.
Is that okay?
Yes. It's better.
Yeah. Try again, Councillor Don, and maybe turn your video off if that might help as well.
Well, I'm going to use that in a minute, but yes, we'll try.
I think we've lost Don, have we?
No, I'm still here. I'm just video off. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
You can. Okay, I'll try and project a bit better. This motion was originally presented to Council, and I presume it's here to be discussed, and the decision would, I think, have to be, correct me if I'm wrong, referred back to Council for approval. But basically, it's to create a Conway Flood Defence Committee to be established to monitor and review the current and long-term flood risks of the county's infrastructure, both commercial and residential, and to develop a strategy for linking with other public bodies and commercial enterprises with a view to developing an integrated county-wide plan to protect the economic activity and job opportunities within Conway from natural and man-made environmental changes. Why did I bring this motion to Council? Well, in February 2019, Councillors Gromway, then our current Deputy Leader, along with Councillors Philip and Peter, the then Chair, expressed regret at the loss of the previous Flood Committee when we debated the introduction of drainage bylaws. This resulted in the setting up of a specific committee just to discuss those bylaws. If we had a dedicated committee for flooding and environment, we'd have had a structure in place to handle this and other associated issues. We have two main documents presented with today's report: the Conway Flood Risk Management Strategy and the National Strategy for Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management in Wales. Both are very detailed and useful documents. But as members of the Council, are we, as members of the Council, fully involved in all aspects of the implementation of these strategies? Given the current environmental needs of global warming, they need regular monitoring and updating. I'm pleased to see that the recent forming of the Merthyr Rutland and questionable name here, Llanrwst Flood Partnership, as highlighted by the Cabinet Member for the Environment at the Council meeting, that these, I presume, along with other flood partnerships which may be formed in the near future, act as responses to previous incidents and hence existing problems. They are, though, reactive rather than proactive. The committee proposed by this motion is to address the long-term risks to our county and must be proactive. The responses given to both my previous questions on the flooding issue to this scrutiny committee and to my motion to council only addressed current projects and avoided the economic risks which we face in the future. In the introduction of the Conway Local Flood Management Risk Strategy, we have the following statement. I'd like to think we've all had a chance to read it, but it is a 90-odd page document. It is likely that changes in our climate, such as increased severity of storms and wetter winters, will increase the risk and impact of flooding. Flooding already poses a serious risk to the people, economy, and environment of Conway, and climate change is expected to increase this risk. This clearly supports the view that we need a holistic approach to addressing the needs of Conway on a county-wide basis. I should like at this point to illustrate the kind of structure that we've got. So I will have to take the risk and open video. If I'm allowed to share my screen. I hope you can now see that screen. I'll try and way as best I can. Right, oh, let's get it over to this side. Particularly when we look at the flood problems, we've got both Westminster providing legislation and also the funding, without which we could do nothing. So here is Little Conway in the middle, and we have a number of supporting organisations around us that we need to work with. For that, we need the strategy. What we have proposed flood partnerships, which are linked very closely to our local forums at present, and even the slightly less linked Llandudno Coastal Forum, but still that closely linked to the north area, as we've just been discussing over the barrage option. So we have here a very interesting situation of our local links go in probably from the local forums, but beyond that, and linking that, expecting to bring in all these extra bodies to all things is less difficult. We need something in the middle to coordinate this. We need something that is strategic, whereas down here, what we're interested in at that level is operational. So for this reason, we need to go back to having a committee, which we did have up to 2013. And if I can move on. Effectively, another illustration of this is that we have a flood defence committee which determines the policy. We've got a policy there already. This is without flood risk. This operates flood defence. Remember, we as council here in the policy and agree and see that it is implemented operationally in our local areas. So if I now escape from that, whoops. I'll go back to Zoom and whoops. Excuse me one moment. Right. Finally, what I want to move on to in presenting this is that I would like to extol the virtues of the flood partnerships that we've sorted out in the past. I can see similarities to some of the work that the Conwy Bay Members Forum did under the auspices of Bay Life when looking at some of the developments of the Conwy Bay sea defence operation. And I can see that that's a good way of linking to members and that they're effective. They perform and prove a good debating and information exchange forum. In particular, it's a good forum for discussing the overall effects, not just of sea defences, but also improvements from the Conwy Bay side and the promenade and all the other economic benefits. The risk is that the number of flood partnerships will multiply. As a result, stakeholders will be unable to attend every meeting. So this is why the need for some kind of coordinating committee would be, I think, beneficial. We also need to review the environment generally from sources of water falling from the hills above our towns and villages to the effects of freak tidal damage. We need to investigate the benefits of proposed tidal lagoon, I think, and water retaining operations in some form or other, which may even lead and support some hydro schemes further up the valleys. Thus, we can see that flood prevention involves many benefits to our county, including the generation of clean energy. So what else, may you ask? Well, that's why we need this committee, to find out what is viable in the future, your future, my future, Conway's future. Thank you for your time and listening.
Thank you, Councillor Don. Could you stop sharing your screen now so we can revert back to normal? Thank you.
I've gone and shrunk the screen down. So come on, I can't. I've got it back now. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Don. Councillor Nigel.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation, Don. And I've got a few people who've got their hands up. Councillor Greg Robbins.
Yes, thank you for letting me speak, Chair. I just wanted to clarify a couple of points that Councillor Don raised. With regard to the existing forum or flood partnerships, certainly with Rugland, NRW and Welsh Water are members of that. I would imagine they'll be the same with Condon. Neither of them are members of the Condon Forum because they were invited, but they said involve them directly in what's being done there, and that's the case. Every area, every location is different. I don't want to stifle any debate, but I would also point out 39 of the report on 3 and the local flood strategy, which does basically what's talking about. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Greg. Councillor Michael Smith.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me speak, and thanks, Don, for your motion. I am empathetic to what Councillor Don has said there, but I'm also mindful of our officers and our own time for setting up a committee with regards to this. We were only in attendance to a full council meeting this prior week, where we are told of the immense pressures on our officers and fatigue. And I think this possibly may be duplication. Page 96 of the report pack refers to regional and local plans, and there are 11 individual risk management strategies or plans that we currently work alongside. So, you know, I feel that this could be duplication. I am happy to be corrected, but I believe this work is ongoing and is continued to be done. And I wouldn't want to see any repetition of any works when we're already under immense pressures, but I'm happy to be corrected. If anyone can talk on that, that would be great.
Just wondering whether Owen Conry's online with us.
Yes, he is here, Chair.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, good evening, councillors. Yeah, so as the flood risk and acting flood risk and infrastructure manager, yeah, we participate in, and will continue to participate in these forums. At the moment, we have the Llandudno Coastal Forum, the Morfa Rudlin. We're in the process of setting up the Economi Valley one, bringing that into bringing it back into light. Llanfair TH, there's talk about Llanfair TH. So they're the existing forums that are there. We are looking at, as part of our statutory duty as the local authority, we have to update our local flood risk management strategy. Okay, we've got to do that by October 2022. And as part of our statutory duty in doing that, we will be seeking consultation with local members, local area forums, local flood partnership groups, to with a view to reducing the impacts of flooding in our area, identifying and reducing the impacts of flooding in our area, increasing awareness in our area, providing how we can improve effective response to flood events in our area, and also prioritizing investment. So we will be doing that. That's all part of our statutory duty, which will be coming online, between now and October 2022. So that just gives you a background of what we do already within the team. So,
okay. So that is duplication, or it would be duplication of already what's taking place, Owen?
Well, if the scope, it's not for me to say. It depends on what the scope of the committee or the proposed committee would be. That's what we intend to do, and that's what's laid down in our both our existing flood risk management strategy from 2013 and what we're going to do for the new one going forward into 2022. Now, there are some elements within that strategy that aren't covered by the proposition. But they are, at the moment we have a clear, by the existing Welsh Government, the national strategy, which was published in October October last year, 2020. We have a clear vision of where we have to go as a local authority. So whether there's an overlap there with what is proposed, I'm not sure. But we'll work with whatever's requested of us. We'll work with, Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Owen. Councillor Ken Stevens.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for allowing me to speak at your meeting. I think it's because of the geography of where we are actually on the coast here. We have the storms from the north, we have the runoff from the hills. I have a meeting with Owen tomorrow regarding flooding in my area. I do think we need to find some way to speed this up. I mean, I've spent 7 years working on a project to alleviate flooding in my area. Now, we're talking about 7 years of people's houses being damp and all the health impacts with that kind of thing, So basically, yeah, I quite agree with Owen. We don't want to duplicate things, but we have to find a way of speeding things up. We really do. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Councillor John Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. With all these different bodies that Councillor Don showed on his presentation, I feel we're in danger of saying who's doing what and who's responsible for what. We could end up like Country Gwaelod before we go any further. But my question is this, and somebody I think will be able to answer. If we had a flood defence committee in the past, why was it disbanded? Can anybody help me? No.
So Chris Hughes, you had your hand up.
It was disbanded when Welsh Water pulled out of it because they were one of the parties around the table. And at that time, it was felt if they weren't going to attend the meetings, there was little point in having it. But I think we've moved on from there.
So therefore, Welsh Water will be on board. Can we establish that? Because I see it pointless carrying on without them. But other than that, it was just a point of information, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Thank you. Chris, do you have any other comments? You got your hand up, I see.
Yeah, I did, Chair. The position I was coming from on this is, we've been talking a lot recently about the workload of our members, of our officers, and we can do this through the area forums. I think there's 3 areas in my ward which flood on a regular basis. I can't think of a year when at least one of those areas hasn't flooded, which I've raised issues about them in the past, and I think most of us have issues. If we're going to be asking Owen or members of his team to attend the 5 area forums, they're going to be doing that on quite a regular basis, and it just seems to me more logical to have one committee that deals with flood, and then it's, rather than having officers going to the various forums and trying to link everything together, bearing in mind when they go to the forum, it's unlikely that they would be able to have, we talked about Welsh Water or others, whereas a dedicated flood committee, it might be possible to get buy-in from those other agencies that we need to work with to come up, if they can come on board, even if they're only attending on some of the meetings when it's relevant to them, but getting Natural Resources Wales there when it's relevant to them. Whereas I don't think we're going to be able to do that in area forums if we wanted them to attend 4 area forums in a month. I mean, it'd just be impossible. It just seems to me a more logical situation to support Councillor Don's proposal of having a flood committee that can deal with all of the issues, and rather than taking up the time of the area forums dealing with something like that, and as I say, loading more and more work onto officers.
Just with the, I wouldn't say the area forum, but the Morville Rutland Flood Partnership is the one that they attend in our area. Councillor Ian Jenkins, you're waving frantically there.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Diolchgar iawn i chi am y cyfle. Yn gyntaf oll, fyswn i'n licio ateb cwestiwn y cynghorydd John Roberts. Mi gath bartneriaeth llifogydd Dyffryn Conwy i'w orffan pen gath Jonathan Williams a'i adran o orffan efo Cyngor Conwy. Gynna ni ddim wedyn swyddfa argyfwng yn Conwy. Mae wedi cael ei symud i ochrau Cei Conan i'r Laforna. Ac peth arall o'n i eisiau drafod rwan tra da ni ar fama, y peth pwysica yn 2019, pen gaethon ni'r llifogydd yn Llanrwst, yn Station Road, mwd yn bob man ag ati. Digwyddiad annisgwyl oedd o. Fedrai'm dweud bod o'n flash flood, ond a chi gofio, o'na scaffolding wedi cael ei gosod ar un adeilad lle oedd o wedi tagu'r afon a'r dŵr wedi cael ei droi i lawr ac ar ffordd arall, ac yn llefydd eraill oedd yna dir feddianwyr ddim wedi llnau'r afon ers talwm iawn, ac oedd y dŵr hwnnw wedi cael ei droi trwy'r caea, ac oedd hwnnw wedi dod i mewn. So, y bwysig iawn, mae un o swyddfeydd yr bartneriaeth llifogydd ydy bod gynna ni rywun wedi gynnal y chadw a cadw llygad ar beth sy'n digwydd yn yr afonydd bach a'r afonydd mawr, i wneud siŵr, fatha da ni'n dweud bod yn proactif, wrth edrych allan am y pethau yma, ydy'r llifogydd ddim wedi bod gynwythad am bod ni yn edrych i fewn i'r afonydd bach a os oes yna rhywbeth wedi tagu nhw i fyny. Cos dydy, dwi'm yn cofio'r gair, lle mae bob tir feddiannwr a cyfrifoldeb at hanner yr afon i gadw fo'n lân. Dwi'm yn meddwl bod lot fawr o bobl ddim yn gwybod am hynny. Repair and ownership, dwi'n meddwl, dwi'n sôn am. Ac os oes pawb yn gwybod am hwnnw, wrach oes sefyllfa lot gwell. Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Councillor Ian. Councillor Geoffrey Corrie.
Thank you, Chair. There's a lot being said there, so I won't say too much. Everybody's covered things very, very well. I was fortunate enough to be in at the start of the Northern Rutland Flood Group and part of the strategy team of Conway, which finished 2013. A bit later, part of the reasons were it went more regional, run from Flint rather than local authorities. What I will say, I looked at that chart and listened to Don, and I really have to say, we're not reactive, not standing there with a finger in the hole in the city wall. We're very, very proactive. And I think Owen would feel for that. I know you, Chair, realise that. So we're very, very proactive. And I'm very concerned that this could lead to, definitely will be duplication. Haven't been there before. It's definitely duplication. Concerned about officers' time. We've got the flood group working. We've got Natural Resource Wales on board. We've got Welsh Water on board. We've got our IM on board. So, you know, can't be more proactive than that. So I find it very, very hard to support what Don is saying in current format, but happy to hear more about it. So we're proactive, Don, not reactive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Geoffrey. Deputy Leader, Councillor Garumby.
Diolch, Councillor Nigel, and I won't take up too much of your time. I should make members aware that the LSP, the Local Partnership Conway Denbighshire LSP, have been looking into this for some time, and the whole idea has been looked at and worked on by the lead body, which is the NRW, because at the end of the day, they are the regulatory body and the catalyst for bringing all the different agencies together. This piece of work has been going on since last year. Unfortunately, because of COVID, the LSP has not met as frequently as it hasn't met for the last 8 or 9 months. This is a piece of work that Owen's been prepared reports for, and it will be driven, as I say, for local area forums through the LSP with the leadership of NRW. Now, I was sat on the All Wales Flood Risk Board for many years until it came to an end when NRW was set up. And that's where a lot of the local forums sort of disappeared when the Environment Agency was taken over by NRW. So certainly that has been recognised as a weakness, and that is why the LSP, as part of their work, is looking into the establishment of the local area forum. So I am concerned about the duplication that this will introduce, especially when the NRW are the key drivers to any mitigation works at the end of the day.
Thank you there, Councillor Gromway. Councillor Anne McCaffrey.
Thanks, Councillor Nigel, and thanks for letting me speak since I'm not a member of the committee. I suppose I take quite a different perspective on this, I think, and for me, I'm not sure I can sense or have felt where the strategic democratic overview in terms of devising our priorities and driving our priorities and indeed working with other agencies. I mean, I've been a councillor since 2012, and since that time I've had flooding problems, time in, time out, and time in, time out. And certainly, you know, I've struggled to actually sort of put Conway West and certainly, you know, my area on the map, but it's not about being parochial here. You know, I think we're being quite strong in terms of, and Welsh Government has been quite strong in terms of coastal flooding. We obviously know we've got the big problem in terms of the River Conway, but there's masses of other relatively big problems and some minor problems that become big problems. And I'm not sure I understand after sort of 8-9 years here what our structure is, and or indeed if we got a democratic sort of involvement in driving this, because it very much is community based. I mean, for me, page 47, I think, of the Welsh Government strategic structure really quite distills very clearly how Welsh Government drives this. I'm not quite sure how we are driving this or being driven or by whom in terms of driving sort of flooding and climate change. mean, I personally have tried to engage with Welsh Water, with Natural Resources Wales, with Snowdonia National Park, and I hear what Councillor Gormley says about Natural Resources Wales, but you know, when you go on the website of Natural Resources Wales, you can see that there's all about mapping. It's about showing flooding rather than actually sort of driving it for me. And I've struggled, and I'm not sure if anybody else here has, to get all of the various parties together. I'm in the middle of it now with the help of Owen, but it's not about being local here. For me, you know, climate change is a big issue. Flooding is a big issue. In the last 3 months, we've had massive storms, and in each and every one of them, I personally have had flooding in my ward. And I'm not sure that we've got this democratic driving seat and this engagement with the key public body set up, because it's complex, and obviously we've got these different bodies. So I interpret what Don's suggesting here. It's about being more productive. It's about being slim and more agile in actually identifying what are the issues for Conway in each of its 5 areas, and actually what these other bodies are going to do. And in my experience, Natural Resources Wales doesn't want anything to do with rivers, wants to do lots about maps, and wants to put sort of flooding maps on and identify flood risk. And it is this piece about how do you get things done? How do we protect ourselves and protect our communities? And I would just ask you to perhaps, you know, consider that more than perhaps I've heard sort of tonight, because I think there's a big gap here. And I think as somebody who's elected, all of us, you know, we should have more of a say and an understanding and an input into what's happening within Conway. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much for your comments, Anne. Councillor Liz Roberts.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Chair. As someone who'd been a member of the Flood Partnership for the Conway Valley since 2004, it was a really worthwhile partnership. And I really want to see that being resurrected again. And we had a very good meeting of the Rural Area Forum this afternoon with Owen and Andy Wilkinson. And I think, you know, at the moment, we are told to be resilient. We are supposed to be supporting our communities during these COVID times. And I think we're asking our communities to be resilient once again where flooding is concerned. That is a favourite word that comes out about flood defences. Our communities must be resilient. And we need some ownership on these issues. And I think by having these area forums that have their flood partnerships, I think that gives more ownership on the problems determined in those areas. And as Owen said earlier on today, now that we have this platform of Zoom, we're not asking these partnership bodies to come to a meeting. We're asking them to join us on Zoom. So I think it can work in that manner. And you know, do we need a Conway Flood Partnership? I don't know. Or do we have these 5 separate ones that we're talking about? That's what I would like to see take forward. Thank you.
Interesting question, Liz. Yeah, I don't have any appetite to be talking about all the flooding that goes on in the Conway Valley, when apparently I live in Flood Town Central, and you know, that's just not the case. But there we go. Interesting comments, Liz. Thank you very much. Councillor Gareth Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for letting me speak on what is a very, very serious issue. And I would like to say that I can simply commend all the good work that this authority has undertaken in catering for all the flooding that has taken place. We know the hazardous areas, and everything that can be done is being done. And I believe I certainly wouldn't want any duplication of the kind of work that we are doing in a responsive and a responsible manner. I think in that respect, good work is being undertaken, and certainly ERF are very much to the fore. I think what Councillor Don is sharing with us here is a look to the future, isn't it? Currently, we tend to think in the way the climate is as it is today. We have to imagine that things are going to get 10 times worse in terms of the incidence of rain and the impact of that and so on. And all I feel we should be looking for, similar to what Don is proposing, but at some strategic level, somebody needs to look to the future. Somebody needs to raise above the current responsive, and it is a very responsible work and response that we are getting. But you need to raise your sights above that, along a strategic committee, but it may not be simply confined to Conwy. I would accept, I think Goronwy was referring to the LSB. Is that the PSB, Goronwy? I'm not sure, but it could be a combination, of local authorities that we need to look at. But somehow we need to have a strategy that caters for the change in climate, which will be 10 times worse than what we are currently facing. I would satisfy if Owen could tell us, or anybody, in terms of, you don't need to worry about this because there is an ongoing forum or strategy or committee or whatever looking at, let's say, as an example, the Conwy Valley. You're not going to maintain the Conwy Valley as being flood-free simply by clearing out culverts. It needs, in view of the climate change, the drastic change that's upon us, it needs a new radical approach, absolutely. In fact, not only we have talked about water attenuation and so on, upstream, etc., and taking on the catchment area, but I believe an answer may well be ultimately, as you've had on a very grand scale with the Thames in London, you'll need some form of a tidal control, gates and so on, as the Conwy River enters the sea, because the tide plays havoc with all your schemes because it pushes the water back up, as we know, towards the bridge in Llanrwst and so on. So I'm not quite sure that we're getting a handle on the future concerns, the aspects of change to the future. And I think you need to be looking at this. And if the officer can come back and say, don't worry about that, that's being taken care of by the Welsh Government, I've yet to see any evidence of talk, discussion about the future prospects and safeguarding this county against future flooding. And I think that's the opportunity for us, that Don, in presenting this, he's raising that glimpse to the future. Well, how do we cater for that? We're doing a good job in terms of responding, as we are. And very well, recently, we've had success in Llanrwst from, when there were recent storms. But we're talking to the future here. And I'm not quite sure that even the Welsh Government has got its act together. And it's up to us as elected members to push for something over and above. And just to close on this, when Don was referring to the other agencies, I think a very important agency which needs to be included there, Don, I don't know much about them, they're very secretive, is the Crown Estate, because they own the land, don't they, between the tides and so on. And for any future development as far as Conwy is concerned, I think they should be there, very much marked, possibly a member of the various agencies that you need to consult with. Thank you, Chair. Thanks for letting me speak.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gareth. You raised a very interesting point there about management of the flow of the rivers. And one thing that the tidal lagoon would bring forward for my area would be the ability to hold back the tide, to allow the river to empty. Sadly, in the scheme that we're looking at, it doesn't include the Conwy estuary, but that's something that we ought to be having a discussion about, without a doubt. Thank you very much. Councillor Harry Saville.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. First of all, there's a question for Owen. We've currently got these two local flood partnerships that we've reconstituted, and the report makes reference to one that's been pushed in Llanfair TH. Now, we'll take the Llanfair TH one as an example. But I'm right in thinking, aren't I? Apparently there's a lot of effort coming from the local community to create that. So I'd like to know from Owen, what actually is the level of community engagement in these local flood partnerships? And I'm going to include in that community council engagement and also engagement from local county borough council members.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Harry. Yeah, well, I would see the local community has been central to it because, and if you take the one at Clanvire TH, it very much is community-led, while, you know, everybody is rightly, if we take about the February floods, Clanroost had significant flooding in a larger town. Clanvire TH had devastating flooding in a very small village. Yeah, they are quite proactive. In Clanvire TH, the source of the flooding was the Barrog, the Nant Barrog, which is controlled by the NRW, and so between the local community and the NRW, it really is, in that area, it is community-led. In Clanvire, in Morva Rudlin, we have the town council involved as well as the local county councillors, and then the statutory partners, and that's certainly the way that we'd like to go as well down in the Conwy Valley with that flood partnership. So certainly it should be run, I would think, any of these partnerships at the core should be the local community. You know, they are the people that are significantly impacted by any event. They bring very valuable information to the table. So I would be very, you know, in the partnerships that have been established so far, yes, community-led is the way that I think that they should be. They should be at the core of it. That'd be my opinion.
Okay, because I mean, I'm wondering, you know, is the progress that's been made so far disrupted if we change the dynamic from saying we're going to take less of a community-based partnership approach and go down the route of a county borough council subcommittee? I mean, I'm thinking about, okay, we'll take the Llanfair TH partnership, for example. That's been driven by the local community to deal with an issue in Llanfair TH. Will you get the same buy-in if it's a Llanfair TH, every single community in the Conwy Valley, Morva Rutland area as well, and every other community within Conwy being expected to drive the work of a county borough council subcommittee? I'm not sure you will. The other queries I have are, how do you then involve community councils effectively if we go down the route of having one council subcommittee? And also, how do you get local members from this council involved? I mean, I'm thinking, would it not be better to say have, you know, Llanfair TH, I think someone will tell me if I'm wrong, it falls within Llansannan as an electoral division. Would it not make sense to have Sue as the local councillor involved in that partnership, rather than have it as part of one big committee where it's just one or two members of the Plaid Cymru group plus one or two Conservatives, one or two Labour members, etc. I just think, from the sounds of it, you're making good progress on this community partnership approach, and I just worry is, are we at risk of disrupting it by going and ripping up what we've done so far and starting with something else? Those just my concerns. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on those, Owen.
All I'd say is that the groups that certainly the Morva Rudlin and you know, I think no matter what happens, I don't think there'd be any change. You know, I think that group is established, or is looking to get established, and I think they'll be anxious to get to progress that group no matter what. And I'd say that may be the case with the other groups. I'm not sure whether groups would dissolve if you were going to have one larger committee. I'm not sure. Like, that's up to the members of the group. Do you get me? We're only, like, within flood risk and infrastructure, we're only one part of the group. Do you get me? We don't run any of these groups. We're participants. So it's for the groups themselves to decide, you know, the direction of it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, very interesting point, Harry, and I agree. You know, the local focus is what appears to be paying the benefit for us in the Morva Rudlin area, and the buy-in is exceptional, and we could run the risk of losing that. Councillor Abdul Khan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I've been listening to all the debate, which is very constructive. Upon what Owen just said, that was in my mind. I don't think we'll lose any locals' input. What Councillor Dawn is proposing, I'm thinking that will just enhance that. I mean, if local inputs are not heard, then definitely in a Conway County Borough or Conway's Flood Defence Committee will have more of a clout than the locals committee. So I think it will just enhance. That's my view. And from the beginning, I mean, we should have that as an armor. If we need it, we can have it. We don't have to have meeting every month. You could start with 6 monthly meeting, but it's there if we need it. And that's how I see it. And for that, if Councillor Chris Hughes has proposed, I would like to second it. If not, I would like to propose that we like to propose the Councillor Dawn's recommendation, Chair. Thank you.
Well, I don't think anybody has proposed it as yet, so I'll accept that, Councillor Abdul. Councillor Donald Mill.
Thank you. Interesting debate. I'm a little confused about the interpretation of what I said. I apologise if it wasn't clear enough. I have no intention of considering removal, reducing, or doing anything to any of the existing local structures. If anything, I expect to see them grow. What I'm looking at is how we can support them at a higher level and involve and integrate them into the other appropriate agencies. I've had the pleasure of sitting in on the South Local Forum this afternoon and seeing and listening to the debate about what area should be local and how many they needed to do this. And I think that's the important thing. They need to be local. And it's all very well looking at the Conway Valley one and the Rutland Water. You're dealing with 2 large areas there. There are lots of other smaller areas and they need their support. Hopefully we can use our own local area forums to help generate the interest and involvement and give them the confidence that we can create these locally run operations. But at some point we need coordination. We need to know what is going on in Conway. And at the level important on long term, we some of the bigger projects, not just the tidal lagoon, but work that involves where the water is coming from, not just what we do with it when it gets there. And that seems to be our problem. And that's why I use the term about reacting rather than being proactive. We react when there's water coming at us. Well, what can we do to stop the water appearing at that place at that time? What can we do to slow it down? Those are the things which are beyond our little local forums, because in many cases we may be dealing with something like, for example, water coming out of another county. You know, this is a big long-term problem, and the local people are going to do great jobs at their area, but we need to have some kind of actual involvement of members in the strategy and policy for protecting Conway. You know, this is about Conway. It's not about just one little stream here and there. That is being dealt with. We have the organisations for doing that, and we hope to encourage them to grow, and Owen is giving them the support where necessary. But what we have is to look at the much larger picture, right? And that's what I'm proposing here. I don't propose that this committee would be something that would be meeting weekly, monitoring what they're doing and integrating all our capabilities and supporting those other organisations. That's the aim. So I think, you know, this concept about overwork, well, no, it's going to add and improve things and make things easier in the long term. Now that's the essence. It's not a case of creating extra work. We're going to have extra work anyway when all these efficient local forums start up. We need them, but we also need to look at how we manage that. And that is the important thing. And that's why I thought some kind of committee, exactly what its actual format will take, that may be something open for further debate. But we do need something in that massive void. And that's what I'm supporting. And that's what I think members should be involved in. Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me to.
I don't quite understand your points, Councillor Dom. My own take on it is that the process is already happening and the democratic input is also taking place when it comes the decisions or the plans come through democracy. They already are, and I think my fear, as I said at the beginning, is duplication. But I thank you for your comments, Councillor Harry Saville.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And look, it's just a question for Don initially, just to help me kind of understand where we're going with this. So we have these local flood partnerships. They can look at flooding issues on a very local, let's say almost microscopic level. And then obviously, if any work's going to be done, depending on the nature of the work, it needs to be approved by either Cabinet or full council. So am I right in thinking that we have the flood partnership groups, they feed into this subcommittee, flood committee, whatever it will be. That committee considers what they're asking for, what they're suggesting, and then a decision goes to Cabinet or Council to sign off or approve. Is that roughly the process we're imagining or thinking of?
Do you want me to come back on that?
Yeah, yes, please.
What you're talking about is we have an individual problem. You know, we have a problem where a river is overflowing at a point.
Yep.
We come with a solution for it. We have to get the funding for it. We have to solve that problem. But in many cases, that's just the problem now. What I'm considering here is, and when you look at and read the strategy document, is the elements in there that are more long-term, preparing and doing things now so that we don't get those kind of problems in the future. That's the essence of it, to review what is actually going on, to create the strategy. You know, this is our job. We're at the operational side. We have officers implementing the operational side and advising on that. But we need to have a strategy there, and we need to have you look at what has happened along the massive £50 million or so on coastal defences. That has taken years to put in place, and that hasn't been put in by necessarily local groups. A lot of that, it's work that's been done, and we need to do that at county level. And we're looking at this more inland as well. You know, the hillside problems, the water flows, and we need to work with the organisations that own that land, and we need to see how we can cope with that water that's coming down. Can we make better use of it? You know, you're into reservoirs and hydro schemes, all those things. They're not the kind of things that you're going to be dealing with at a local level. So it's giving us another string to our bow, if you like. But I don't imagine that this is some kind of monster committee that's going to take many, many hours and many, many meetings. It is simply monitoring the options, looking at the options, and taking in the reports. Can I give you an example of this? What I think has been the best board meeting I've ever sat on, and that's the Green Programme Board, where we have experts from various areas coming together, telling us what they're doing and outlining where they're going in the future. And it's that kind of approach we need, to look at the future, not at what we've got to do. That's by your local meetings. Well, okay.
I mean, that was what I was wondering. I mean, if we're looking at it strategically, you know, if we're saying we're not So to say we're not interested isn't the right way of phrasing it. But if we're saying rather than having a focus on small individual issues and we're looking at the climate change problem as a whole, I mean, I think that certainly is worthwhile. But don't we have a green project board that already does this? I mean, I just wonder whether or not the green project board would be a suitable vehicle for this. I mean, my first question, and we've got the cabinet member here, perhaps he could answer it, is if this green project board isn't already doing this sort of work, then what on earth are they doing? Why do we have them? I mean, I'd have thought in terms of environmental change.
Can I just come in there, Harry?
Yeah.
I mean, I've sat on that board. The aim of that is more for climate change and benefits of that area. There's a lot of things in there. I suggest you go and find out a little bit more because, and you know, we have a report that comes, I think it's to Economi in Place every year that outlines everything that they do. And I suggest you do read that very carefully because that's beneficial. But here, you know, we're not saying that the Green Programme Board could be looking at things like the tidal lagoon, like hydro schemes up the valley. We're not looking, you know, these are different things. I mean, if you want to extend the scope of that board, I think you would also need to extend the scope of membership involvement so that they can actually liaise and bring this in and feed up the information from the local needs and look at the long-term needs because the two need to be matched.
I'm thinking back now when council discussed Aaron's notice of motion on a climate emergency. Weren't we reassured at the time, and I'm sure climate change and flooding was mentioned as part of the climate emergency challenge we're facing in Conway. I thought the Green Project Board, and I get they do an awful lot, but I thought part of the Green Project Board's involvement of that maybe a different board. You know, I'm only a backbench member, but I thought part of that board was supposed to focus on dealing with these issues. I mean, if it isn't, and we need a separate body, then fair enough. But I would have thought it would be integral to that board's work. I would have thought.
Can I remind you, Harry, that Aaron's motion contained an extra element that I proposed at the time as the cabinet member, which proposed that we would have a 10-year period for carbon reduction, and hopefully we will hit that by 2030. But you must remember that that is about carbon reduction side of things, and that's what a lot of the Green Programme Board is doing. And I think it would be not helpful to spread this into things like flood protection. I think it's an extra specialism. But it's the same thing of bringing together experts in different areas, experts like Owen, who can advise on each of the different elements within this and what we're doing. And that's what I think we need to achieve. And, you know, it doesn't have to be something that is that heavily required of officers' time because you're bringing together what they're already doing, but they're giving us the opportunity to be involved and also to discuss options going forward. And then it allows people like our leader and co, when they're involved with government ministers, to put things to achieve and need support that is vetted.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Councillor Greg Robbins, Cabinet Member.
Well, thank you for allowing me to speak, Chair. There's just a few points I want to raise. It's been quite well discussed, but I think there's some things that need to be brought out. Councillor Dunn said that the existing groups like Rugland and the LCF, Condon Coastal Forum, are reactive. That's certainly not the case. If you look at the Condon Coastal Forum, they'll shortly be putting reports before this showing a plan for the next 100 years protection of Condidno. That's not particular to me. And certainly from the meeting of the Rugland Flood Partnership we had a couple of weeks ago to play forward and just a review of what's gone on. So I think that's a different thing. Remind everybody, we do have the local flood risk management strategy, which is a document which has input from councillors, from communities, and also comes through this committee as well. So there's quite a bit of democratic overview on that, and certainly you can get involved at any stage. To what's been referred to program no longer exists. We now have a challenge board with a program board and a project board. It's a bigger animal than itself. We've already delivered the net zero carbon plan, and we've always said that board can adapt. So there's no reason why it could not adapt the flood conditions and flood reactions within that. It has the capability to do that because it's set up in that framework. And then finally, looking at total overview, as Councillor Dondry numerous times, look at with the work of our flood risk management strategy, with the work of the area for work of the individual flood ships and the else, do we need to confuse this anymore?
I don't think we do. But, there we go. Thank you very much, Councillor Gregg. We don't have any other speakers. We've had one proposition so far, which was from Councillor Radnor.
Sorry to interrupt, I think Councillor Gareth Jones wants to come in.
Councillor Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. Very, very briefly. I believe there's a difference between flood defence and flood prevention. And Councillor Don is taking us down the road towards flood prevention. I'd ask you to consider that, because I don't think we're fully engaged with flood prevention for today and for future generations. And I really would ask you to consider that we're doing the marvellous work with flood defences, repairing and preparing for future floods in that sense. But we need a strategy for flood prevention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gareth. Yeah, interesting. I'm not 100% convinced there, Gareth. I think flood prevention comes in many forms, and national policy brings it forward. It's very interesting that Don mentioned the coastal defence scheme, which we were lucky enough to get all 7 of our proposed schemes brought forward. I don't think I've ever witnessed such an amount of consultation locally with residents, town and community councils, county councillors. It's been a good process, and it's an ongoing process, and that's why I'm stuck on with my mind that any additional level of duplication is not best use of my time, my fellow councillors' times. I don't think it's best use of our officers' times. And I think, you know, we've got these flood partnerships that have been resurrected, and to give them justice, we should give them time to get going. But duplication is something that I don't want to be visiting personally. That's my thoughts on it. Do we have any other speakers?
Councillor Sam Cotton wants to come in, Nigel.
Oh yeah, Councillor Sam.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, having listened to everybody speaking, we've had discussion about officers' time, the very thin resources that Owen has available to him to cover all of these meetings and flood groups and partnerships. And I do wonder about the wisdom of creating another level of meeting for officers to attend. I'm not sure what the proposal is that's been made, but I wonder if there's any value in Owen collating all the information from those various partnerships and flood groups, because quite often these flooding events might only be known if we see them on the news, like in Llanrwst, for instance, or places like that. They might only be known to the local members, and I might not necessarily be aware of the flooding instances in, you know, other parts of the county. And I'm wondering whether Owen would be able to collate all the work that he does from these various partnerships and actually report back to this committee, where rather than setting up another committee that isn't necessarily going to engage all of the members, this committee is a forum that's more likely to do that, I would suggest.
Owen?
Yeah, there's no problem that obviously we have within the department, you know, we have an overview of everything that's happening within the county, both coastal and fluvial. Yeah, we collate, you know, we do report most of our schemes are Welsh Government funded, and we do collate reports on a quarterly basis for the Welsh Government. So, you know, something can be done maybe on a biannual, if that suits the committee. I can gladly present a report to this committee about, you know, what civil capital works are being implemented or are being worked on at the time. That's no problem. A report can be done, but that'll be reporting on work that is happening either, you know, on fluvial or coastal prevention schemes or mitigation schemes. So I can bring that type of report to you. I don't know, beyond that remit, well, yes, no problem. I can bring a report maybe every 6 months if that's suitable to the committee. Yeah.
Okay, is that a proposal, Councillor Sam?
Yes, it is.
No, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harry. Councillor Phil Capper.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I keep breaking up and disappearing off this meeting, but I hope it'll last for the moment. It seems to me that we're in danger here of sort of recreating the wheel with all the consequential duplication in effort and expense to just talk about the same thing in yet another forum. And I will be supporting this Councillor Sam's and Harry's proposition.
Okay. Do we have any other speakers? I don't think we do. So we have two proposals, I believe. One of Councillor Abdul Khan, which was that we recommend to Cabinet the
that Conway Flood Defence Committee be established.
Yeah, and that was seconded by Councillor John, was it? I think.
I don't think it's been seconded,
Oh.
Nigel.
Okay.
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we do have a seconder then in Councillor Donald Mill. Okay, and then we have a counter proposal, which was Councillor Sam Cottons. And if you'd just like to remind the members what that was, Councillor Sam.
Yes, it was just if Owen could collate all the information from all the various flood committees and forums across the county and report. I don't know whether Owen has just suggested biannually or quarterly to this committee, but that this committee, as a major scrutiny committee of this council, be the forum that receives that information.
Okay, and that's instead of the Conway Flood Defence Committee.
I'm suggesting that we don't establish another committee that we get that information.
Thank you very much. And that was seconded by Councillor Harry. Okay, so we'll take the second amendment first, is it, Jay?
Sorry, yes, if we take Councillor Sam Cotton's proposal first, I will happily call out members' names.
If you could, please.
Sorry, Councillor Jaff, do you want to come in? I can hear you. Don't know.
No.
Oh, right. Okay, my apologies.
I was trying to get my computer working. Right.
Okay. Okay, so members, are you all clear on what we're voting on? Councillor Sam Cotton's.
Actually.
Oh.
So this is not to recommend to Cabinet the formation of the Conway Flood Defence Committee, but rather have a half-yearly report to this scrutiny committee by officers, by OE.
Chair, can I just ask a question on that then, please?
Sure.
What are we going to do with this information? Because the councillor Dawn one is prevention is better than cure. His proposal is to prevent from happening and learn from what we know now and prevent in the future. But bringing the information here, what we're going to do after, because we do get lots of information in this committee. Are we not? I just want to know what will we do with this information.
I would suggest that members feel there's an element of duplication here, Councillor Abdul, and they don't wish to be talking about it in several different committees. You know.
Fine, thanks, Chair.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can take that to the vote, please, then, Jane.
Okay, thank you, members. If you can state clearly if you're for, against, or abstaining. Councillor Carol Beard.
For.
Councillor Phil Capper.
For.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
For.
Councillor Samantha Cotton.
For.
Councillor Pat Hebron.
Against.
Councillor Chris Hughes. Councillor, thank you. Councillor Ian Jenkins. Councillor Ian Jenkins. Are you in favour or against?
Yn erbyn.
Thank you. Councillor Abdul Khan.
Yn erbyn.
Councillor Don Milne.
Against.
Councillor John Roberts.
O blaid.
Councillor Harry Saville.
For.
Councillor Michael Smith.
For.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Councillor Bob Squire. Can you unmute, Councillor Bob?
Against.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Joan Vaughan.
Oh.
And Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Erbyn.
Okay, bear with me, members. I'll just add them up. That's 9 in favour and 7 against.
I can confirm that the members have voted in favour of Councillor Sam and Harry's proposal. Do we need to take a second vote?
No.
Does this vote then get referred to full council, because that's who referred it to this committee?
It's put forward to Cabinet as recommendation to Cabinet for approval.
Hi, Chair, can I just come in? I've just been looking at the Constitution and the Constitution states that Council can refer the notice of motion to a committee for consideration or determination as appropriate. I will have to take legal advice from the monitoring officer as to whether it does go back to council or not in that case, because like you say, the Constitution does state it can refer the notice of motion to a committee for consideration or determination as appropriate. So I will confirm with the monitoring officer.
Okay, thank you very much, Jane. So,
Chair, could I just ask for a point of clarification there?
Yep.
Effectively what we've just agreed is that this committee wants to receive biannual reports on flood events and information that's been discussed by local flood partnerships and other organisations. why would that need council approval? I mean, even if it went back to council and in the very bizarre circumstance council said no, I thought the constitution was quite clear that scrutiny committees manage their own workload and can request reports. So I'm unsure why we would need a vote to do something we're empowered to do under a constitution. Surely this committee has said we would like reports from officers. Officers should now bring those reports forward. I would have thought. Tell me if
I think that is perfectly correct.
Yeah, it sounds perfectly correct, but with the absence of any legal advice this evening.
I will just confirm, Councillor Harry, like you said, that's my thoughts, but I would just like to double check the process to make sure that we are following the Constitution appropriately.
Could I make a suggestion here that actually the proposal of Councillor Sands that has been approved is simply this committee looking for, which clearly I would guess is well within the rights of the committee, but the request for council for this committee to debate this and effectively report back to them. So exactly what are you reporting back to council?
Like I said, Councillor Dunn, I'm going to have to seek advice because the Constitution does say that the council can refer this notice of motion to a committee for consideration or determination as appropriate. So I just need to seek clarity on that.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dawn. So we'll move on to item 8.3, which is a notice of motion for an independent flood inquiry to be presented by Councillor Aaron Wynne. Councillor Aaron.
Yeah, diolch cadeirydd, thank you, Chair. Yeah, as members will recall, I brought a notice of motion to full council about a month or so ago, which would have outlined our position calling for an independent flooding inquiry, and that we tasked the leader with writing to the First Minister. So, but thank you, Owen, and the flood risk team for this report. I am glad members have now had the opportunity to see the Section 19 report of the flooding here in Llanrwst. And as it says in the report, Llanrwst had the greatest number of properties affected by flooding here in Conwy, affecting both people's homes and local businesses as well. Now, my original notice of motion was that we call on the leader of the council on our behalf to write to the First Minister calling for an independent flooding inquiry. Now, that isn't instead of our own Section 19 report, it is to add to it. Now, due to climate change, flooding is becoming more frequent in the Conwy Valley, and indeed the whole of Wales, and flooding events are becoming ever more extreme. Conwy can't tackle this on its own. We have a major part to play, of course we do, but we need a national approach and a national lead on this. So an independent flooding inquiry led by the Welsh Government would show them, the government, how much work and money is needed to tackle this issue. Now, after the floods last year, flooded residents could claim, I believe it was £500 from the Welsh Government to help with repairs and cleaning the mess and so on. Now, I strongly believe had the Conwy Valley alone flooded, and not a couple of South Wales communities as well, we would not have seen that level of support from the Welsh Government. So that's why we need the Welsh Government here on the ground to look at the issue. And as an authority, I believe we need all the help we can get so we can alleviate the flood impact on our communities. What we've done so far clearly isn't enough. My hometown, as well as other communities here in Conwy, live in constant fear of flooding. Let's get the Welsh Government here on the ground. Let's get them on board. Let's work across authorities and across public bodies to alleviate the flooding impact on our communities. So with that said and done, like I said in full council a couple of months ago, I'd like to propose that we go with option 1 in this report, that we ask the leader to write to the First Minister calling for an independent flood inquiry. Diolch.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aaron. Councillor Gregg, do you want to come in on this item?
Not at this moment, Chair, but to at the end if you'd indulge me.
Councillor Abdul Khan wants to come in. Councillor Nigel. Oh, I think you're on mute, Councillor Nigel.
Sorry, I do apologise. Yeah, Councillor Abdul.
I just want to second that, Chair. Second the motion.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other comments on this motion? Councillor Harry?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've got a question. There was a request for an independent inquiry into flooding in the Conway Valley in, I think, early 2020 from a local assembly member. Now, I'm not sure how far that got, but my understanding is that that wasn't progressed for any reason. And I'm wondering, was there, I mean, I can't think of a good reason or reason that seems sensible to me as to why it wasn't progressed. But I'm wondering, was there a reason that we know that came from Welsh Government as to why that hadn't been progressed? Has any other work taken place? I mean, I think this is a reasonable point that Aaron's making. I don't think it's unfair to ask for Welsh Government to explain themselves. But what I'm wondering is we've already, well, we haven't, but this process has already been gone through before recently. Are we just going to hit the same result, or is there a smarter way of doing it? I mean, I don't know if either a cabinet member or Owen or Aaron, I mean, Aaron's far more clued up on this than I am. It's his area, whether or not any of them have any thoughts, but that's just something that's sprung to my mind.
Okay. Owen, do you have anything to say on that?
Just say in relation to Llanrwst, and certainly it's always on the radar anytime there's a yellow weather warning. And the thing about Llanrwst is it's not just the river, but certainly the flooding in February was from the watercourses, and it was the significant debris brought down. If you recall, there was a lot of heavy wind and rain, a lot of debris brought in, and in Llanrwst there was actually flooding at 5 individual locations. It's not a case that just one thing happened, but at 5 different locations in Llanrwst. And what I would say is that since the event this time last year, just over 12 months ago, there's been over £250,000 invested in new mitigation works at Bronderu and in Perthy and Llanrwst. We were lucky enough to get funding for additional resources. So two of the locations which were impacted by the flooding in February, hopefully the risk has been significantly reduced in that area. Also, we're currently, there is additional works being planned in Llanrwst. We have a natural catchment management proposal around the School Bank Road area that's been looked at. And also, we've sort of, it's always on the radar, like we cannot let Llanrwst and other communities within Conwy be impacted the way they were last February. Like, you may not be aware of it, but we've had 6, 7, 8 weather warnings similar to what we had in February last year, since, even since October this year. I think we've had 4 or 5 significant events, and Councillor Aaron will probably know. I think I was on the phone to him a couple of times. So it's an ongoing problem to reduce the risk in the area now. And there's the Section 19 report there that has given recommendations. We'll certainly have passed on that to the different stakeholders. So that's where we're at. Llanrwst, like all communities, is on our radar all the time. And I think since that event in February, even with all the events that we have had, unfortunately, we have had some properties flooded, but it's I could nearly count them on one hand. I think maybe 6, 7 over in the year since. So, yeah, it's just it is ongoing, and it will be ongoing.
And can I just quickly add as well, what I'm asking for is something to add to the Section 19 report and the great work that Owen's team has already done, that we, as the lead flood authority, are asking the Welsh Government for their support. It's obviously their responsibility as well as ours.
Indeed. Councillor Ian.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Fel mae Aaron wedi deud eisoes, mae trigolion Llanrwst yn pryderu yn fawr iawn. Munud mae nhw'n clywed glaw yn taro'r ffenast, mae o calon nhw'n curo'n drymach, mae'r frustration ddychrynllyd o weld dim byd yn digwydd. A mae Aaron eisiau gweld rhyw fath o adroddiad annibynnol sydd yn egluro yn fwy eang ein pryderon. Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gregg.
Well, thank you for allowing me to speak, Chair. Yeah, to be fair, I fully understand where Aaron's coming from with this, but I say I would repeat what Harry said, that the request was Jennifer cylinders and rebuked. I can't be certain, but I understand because there was obviously the Section 19 reports were coming out. So that could be one particular thing. The other thing I just wanted to point out, and Owen touched on it there, we've had very good support from Welsh Government financially. We've currently got 10 schemes greenlit and funded by them moving forward. So it's not like we're not support from Welsh Government when it comes to our flood request schemes, to be fair. So I just wanted to point that out, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gregg. Well, we don't have any other speakers on this item. So we've got a proposal from Councillor Aaron that we write to the Welsh Government, the First Minister, asking for an independent report. Do we have a seconder for that?
I believe Councillor Abdul Khan seconded the proposal.
Sorry, Abdul.
Fine.
Okay, so we'll take it to the vote as we don't have any other speakers.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nigel. Members, if you can clearly state if you're in favour, against or abstaining. Councillor Carol Beard. Councillor Carroll. I think she may have left the meeting. Are you there, Carol? I'll come back to Carol. Councillor Phil Capper. Councillor Phil, are you there? Okay, I'll skip to Councillor Jeff Corrie.
Against.
Against, sorry, did you say Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Samantha Cotton.
Yep, I'm here. Against.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pat Hebron.
Support that.
In favour. Okay, thank you. Councillor Chris Hughes.
Obliged.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Jenkins.
Obliged.
Councillor Abdul Khan.
Obliged.
Councillor Don Milne.
In favour.
Councillor John Roberts.
Obliged.
Councillor Harry Saville.
For.
Councillor Michael Smith.
For.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Sorry, tricky one. I don't think anything will come of it, but let's send the letter. For.
Councillor Bob Squire.
Obliged.
Councillor Joan Vaughan.
For.
Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Obliged.
Okay, can I just go back to Carol Beard? Are you with us now?
Yeah, sorry, I was here. I couldn't
Not to
connect
worry.
then. Yes, 4. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll just double check. Phil Capper, are you with us? No, okay. I can confirm that's 13 members for and 2 against. You're on mute, Councillor Nigel.
Sorry, I can confirm that that has been carried. We'll now move on to 8.4, which is a report in response to the motions of notion by the Head of Environment, Roads and Facilities.
Councillor Nigel, I think that's been covered.
Has it?
With Councillor Aaron's
notice
of motion.
That's the end of the meeting then, Jane?
Yes, Indeed it is.
Could I just say, Owen, I want to thank you and your team for an absolutely fantastic report. It's one of the biggest agendas I've had for a long time, and it was superb. So thank you very much, Owen, and Greg, of course, and the team for all their hard work. Thank you, members. I'll call an end to the meeting now.
Thank you,
Thank
Good
you,
night,
members.
everyone.
Good night.